Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Big Sky. A great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we get introduced kind of to our main characters in a complicated situation. This is kind of like the complicated day because it's like we get introduced to Jenny and Cassie, who are best friends, or at very least really good friends, but it turns out Cassie was sleeping with Jenny's ex. But they were separated, and which I'm sure that's the whole. I'm probably thinking too much about it because when you think about that, you think about the Ross and Rachel situation. No, it was like we were on break. There's that whole technicality, but it's like we were separated. But separated doesn't mean we're done. It means that we're in a process of like maybe we're separate, but maybe we can figure things out. And you went and slept with my husband. It's bad enough when it's just someone else did it, but it's bad enough when it's like you did it. And obviously Cassie's like, no, I thought you guys were done, and it's like, no, we were separated. And then Denise, who's kind of like, who knew everything, she's like, it wasn't my business. It's like, you make everybody's business your business. So to call up, she calls up Cody. Cody's kind of in the middle of this fire. I mean, it's a situation of his own making, but it's complicated because not only, because he talks about it that him and Jenny, it's like, anytime we're together, we just want to kill each other. So for him, because she was asking like, are we actually done or not, and which makes it complicated because you slept with Cassie and that created this whole complicated thing, but then you sleep with your ex-wife again, so that's a whole, I think it's like the familiarity because it's like you've been through so much together. They have a kid, Justin, together, so it's like, you're going to fall into those bad habits every once in a while and stuff like that, but obviously, he didn't see Cassie and Jenny ending up in a bar fight together. Also, obviously, this episode immediately answers the question because I was like, is someone law enforcement in this? And it's like, it turns out the person that, like, they're private detectives, they're PIs, which, interestingly enough, it seems like Jenny used to be a cop now. Why that was a used to be situation. But there's also, like, because later on, Rick's like, oh, yeah, it turns out, like, so is Cody. Like, well, Cody has a hard time playing well with others, so he's gotten, like, fired from 3 different departments. That's why you're in a private sector now. Kind of with that. Which, that's also another thing, too. We get introduced to Rick, and it seems like, oh, he's such a, like, there's a whole situation with him helping that tourist who was stuck in the mud. It's like, make love to Mother Earth. It's like, your bride, like, how do you go about it? And the guy's like, wait, what? He's like, you got to make love. Don't be rough. And it's like, easy peasy. And lo and behold, and he comes back home and is like, oh yeah, like, talk about this lone day and everything. And she's like, his wife is like, don't call me mother. He's like, but you are the mother of my children. She's like, yeah, but our children are grown and gone. Like, treat me like your wife. So, you need to touch me more. I was like, whoa. And he was like, I thought we talked about, this is menopause talking. We said we weren't going to have those menopause talks over the dinner table. And she's like, I can't believe you just said that to me. Even I'm like, whoa, this is. And then, like, later on when everything kind of, we'll get to it soon enough, but when everything was going off, he was like, this could be my big time. Like, so it's like, okay, so Rick's that type of cop that's like, he's waiting for that big case. He wants to shine like a star type of situation. So it's like, okay, so you're using this as an opportunity. And it's like, okay, so that's your whole deal. Then we also got introduced to Ronald, which I feel so bad for that actor because the most recent thing I've seen that actor in was playing Gene in Briar Patch, which is interesting because it's like, well, if you've seen Briar Patch, you know what kind of character Gene is, and for him to be playing Ronald, especially because his mom chastising him, it's like, oh, all the other people that come over, all the friends, they talk about their children, how they're proud of it, and it's like, she's just shitting on her son. It's like, you, 38-year-old truck driver, still living with his mom. It's like, oh, now you got that boo-boo face going on. It's like, Jesus, his mom was ripping him a new one. But then, like, he goes to, like, because I think she used a different, because I think that's the same person, Jerry and Michelle. Obviously it makes sense. You probably don't want to use your real name, but because we had saw, I think, Jerry, like, earlier in the episode, but I think, like I said, I could be mistaken. That might be a different person, but I think it was the same person, but she went by the name Michelle. She runs into Ronald, and the way he was talking to her and everything, I was like, I'm getting kind of a creepy vibe, but I was like, oh, maybe he's going to be kind of a weirdo, but maybe I thought, like, the conversation we were having, he was like, what about your mom and everything? She's like, well, I haven't talked to my parents in a long time, and he's complimenting her and saying she's beautiful. You're the type of woman that someone could fall in love with. He's like, I'm not the type people fall in love with. And he's like, why not? Like, I just thought I was like, okay. I'm like, I thought I was like, you're gonna be a weirdo, but tell me you're gonna let her go, but then the next person is not gonna be so lucky. That's what I was thinking, because I was thinking he was gonna be like, yeah, I'm not, because I was almost thinking like he was gonna be like, yeah, I'm not gonna, yeah, I was gonna hire you for your services, but never mind. I thought that's what it was gonna be. It's like, and then he proceeds to taser her, and I'm like, there we go. Once again, you went from Gene to this character. Like I said, I feel so bad for that actor. It's one of those the situation where that actor. I mean, Gene he had his complicated things, but it's a whole thing. I'll just leave it at that. If you've seen Briar Patch, you know what I'm talking about. But it's just like, obviously, Ronald's a different type of weirdo than Gene is, but regardless, I was like, yeah, and I was like, oh, that sucks, because it's like, oh, he's out there sweet talking, but that gave me that weird creepo vibe, but then it's like, yep, turns out to be the case. I mean, I think it doesn't help that he's a truck driver, which is effed up to say. I won't get into why that's effed up to say, because I'm not trying to generalize against all truck drivers, but it's just like, the way he was acting plus being a truck driver kind of gave off the wrong impressions, and it turns out, well, those wrong impressions were to be had, I guess. I didn't know this prior to watching the show, because I had just looked it up before I watched the episode, but this series is based on a series of books known as the Highway books or something like that, which makes me think it must be kind of like an anthology where it's like, I don't know whether it's like a continuous, it must be like certain things always happen along this highway, or maybe it's an anthology where things happen along highways in general. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not all in the same town or the same characters. Maybe there's an anthology in it, right? Or maybe it's an anthology in kind of like how at least the TV show for The Sinner is like Harry's the one consistent character across different cases. Maybe it's something similar to that in like the books. But regardless, because it involves, Danielle and her sister, Grace, which the actress who plays Danielle, Natalie, I know her like best from like one of the twins from The Gifted is kind of what I best know her from. Interestingly enough, she was also in Gotham prior to that. But regardless, tangents and all that, those are the kind of the things I best know her from. She was also in the show Daybreakers for like one episode. Regardless, her and her sister on a road trip, because she's actually Justin's girlfriend, and he's trying to get, because obviously they get off the highway because there was a wreck, so they end up going down a different road, and they run into, obviously they're having a little bit of car troubles. The moment the engine stuff starts happening, you're like, oh yeah, that's going to come back to bite them in the ass. I just know it. But then like they cross paths with Ronald, and obviously Danielle kind of gets a little heated, and she just wants to like, creepo, and just kind of call him out, call him a dickwater and everything. But then it's kind of like, yeah, we were able to get away because we were going uphill, and his truck can't handle that. But we're going downhill, so he'll catch up to it pretty quick. It's like, no, we're going to get off this exit. They turn. Ronald turns when he eventually catches up. You're like, oh, that's not good. And then the car troubles start up again, and they're not in the area that they thought they were because Justin led them in the wrong place. And you're like, oh, this sucks. I was like, oh, this sucks. And then, and then like, it's like, oh my God, yeah, we're saying, because like someone's stopping by on this road. Wait, Danny, it's that previous truck. It's like, okay, you know what Dad said? Humans, have the capacity to be good and be great. Don't forget about the capacity humans have to be good or whatever. And I'm like, the moment he shatters the window, I'm like, yeah, don't forget the capacity that humans have to be assholes as well. And he ends up tasing her, tasing Grace. They end up in the back, because we'd seen early in the episode that he has Michelle, quote unquote, Michelle wrapped up, and you're like, oh, damn. I was like, he killed her? I mean, am I surprised? But I was surprised it went down so damn quickly. But then, like, while they're in the back, Grace is the first one to wake up, and they unwrap her. But it turns out, luckily, she's still alive. I mean, the sad thing is, it's like, well, there's no lucky in this situation. Them being alive means that there's a chance for them to be rescued, but it's still, they're in a terrible situation. I was so hyped when they were banging on it. He stopped to try to go back there and tase him. Daniel was the only one awake. Everyone else was acting like they were still knocked out. I was like, okay, come on, and they struck. I was like, yeah. I was like, oh my God, mess him up. They stabbed him with like a comb or whatever, but he knocked everybody out. He tased Michelle, kicked Danny to knock her out, and then tased Grace, and was like, oh dude. I was like, damn. I was like, that was almost some legit shit. I was like, yeah, get him. But it's like, of course it wasn't going to go out. But I was like, I thought maybe at least one of them was going to be able to escape. But sadly wasn't the case. And at the very end, they're like shackled. And now the whole question is, because what gets presented in the episode, it's like, is this a sex trafficking thing? Because at first you're thinking it's just Ronald. Like, Ronald's weirdo, because obviously the conversation comes up like when Justin calls up his parents like, yo, like Danny hasn't gotten here yet. She was supposed to be here with her sister a long time ago, and her mom's calling me because we can't get in contact with any of them, obviously because it's cell service, but also like their phones were taken from them. And so it's like something's going on, so they're investigating it, and it turns out in that general area, for one, there's been a lot of disappearances around the truck stop and stuff like that, but also when it comes to all of that, there's also been there's like a cult in that area or something like that. So before they want to investigate things before things really get, because I thought that was interesting, because I didn't think about it, but it's like, okay, you're in that general area, but like Cody didn't see anything along the way, and I felt like you would have seen something because we know that their car was there. So that should have been the first key sign that like someone's working with Ronald, because they covered his tracks for him. But like I said in the beginning, I thought like maybe this is just a Ronald thing, you know, that he's just some weirdo creepo. And it also implies like he's been doing this for a while, because it seems like, oh, there's been a lot of women disappearing from truck stops, so you immediately go, oh, this has been going on for a while, because they eventually said like 12 women have been going missing for like the past 2 years, and immediately Rick being like, huh, really, I didn't hear about. I'm like, okay, that's definitely up. I thought that was kind of interesting. Also just his whole demeanor about this situation, because he's the one that threw it out there in the first place to Cody that, hey, women have kind of gone disappeared, and this ain't the first time young women have kind of disappeared, so maybe there's more to this. That's why I'm like, why would you even suggest that in the first place? But maybe, I mean, I guess maybe that's the whole point. Because I'll skip right to it. That fucking ending, I was like, the way the camera was and everything, I was kind of like, okay, you're gonna like tranquilize him or something and knock him out. Blew his brains out. I was like, what? That looked like a head. That looks like death. That looked like blood and like brain matter on that window. I was like, I didn't see it coming, because like the promotional material, like, I mean, you know, but I guess it's also like the scene when you look back, when I think back on the trailer, the scenes that they had Ryan Phillippe's character of Cody in makes you go like, oh, I thought you were going to be all over the show. It's like, no, you're dead. It seems like at the very least, it seems like you're dead. Because it's interesting, because he was making that whole point of like, I want to keep my pension. It's like, oh, you're going to cost me my pension. I was like, oh, at first I was like, oh, this seems like a relationship. Like, oh man, like, don't screw me over, buddy. Like, while we're investigating this case, like, these are people I know, these are good people, and I don't want you jeopardizing my career. He's like, oh, you're going to jeopardize my career. And so I thought that was kind of a like setup for something. It's like, no. I like the twist that Rick, like, I figured, like, just based on the trailers, like, a lot of people have secrets in this town, and I figured he would too. I thought it was just going to be like, oh, I'm up to some stuff, but I didn't realize, like, oh, you were neck deep in this, because he's calling up Ronald being like, you were sloppy. So now it's like, are they selling these women, like, for sex trafficking? Like, what's that all about? Like, why is he covering? Because it's interesting, because like Denise was like, she knows Rick because like I think she said her cousin used to be married to him, and I'm like, okay, I didn't expect a direct connection in that regard. But on top of all that, you know, it's like, why is it just about like a sex trafficking thing, and him being a truck driver gives him access to women to be able to just easily date? Because obviously that, once again, it goes back to why you're like, doesn't it seem weird that Rick doesn't know anything about the women that have gone missing? Like, it's a yeah, but still, it's just like, because even then it's like, yeah, investigations happen, but like, because even because it was a case that I guess she used to be FBI, is a case that Jenny was working on, so it made you think like, because she was saying yeah, but like nothing ever came about it, because like almost making it seem like the locals didn't really investigate it. So now I think that's probably why, because Rick's like neck deep in all of this. So now it's just like, oh, the mild-mannered like local cop, turns out there's a lot more evil going on there with him, and it's just like he just potentially killed Cody. Not unless we end up finding out Cody's been in a coma the entire gonna be in the coma most of the season. But I'm like, that seemed like that was death. I didn't see that coming. I was like, oh, because like, you know, because even Cassie was like, hey, you don't want to. He's like, don't worry, I'm gonna investigate stuff. I'm with the. I mean, he made it clear where he was last time. So if he comes up missing, I'm sure he's gonna be able to twist that into some case. If it ends up being the fact is that Cody's still alive. Like I said, if he's in a coma or something, maybe the bullet didn't go all the way. I don't know. Like I said, that seems like death, which was like, oh shit, especially because him and Jenny just had that moment, obviously him and Cassie, and that complicated thing for him to die afterwards. It's like, Jesus, there's going to be a lot of regrets on that front, and it's just like, you know, so I think that's going to bring Jenny and Cassie closer, is to, you know, put their stuff aside so they can not only find Danny and her sister, but also like, you know, find out, you know, potentially what happened to Cody and everything. It's like, dude, like I said, that was an ending I didn't see coming. I was expecting it to be, like I said, the camera angle and just what was going down, I was getting a little nervous, but I was like, there's no way they're going to shoot. Bam, shoot him. I was like, Jesus. So, literally ending this episode off with a literal bang. I'm curious to see where this goes next. Like I said, I'm sure, there's going to be a mystery to figuring out what is all about. Is it really about sex trafficking? Is this them just helping Ronald with his thing, his proclivities, his twisted proclivities? What about his mom? It seems like his mom has no idea, or maybe she does, and she just tries to... Maybe there's been signs, but she tries to be ignorant to it all. Maybe not. I have no idea. I mean, I'm interested to see kind of where things kind of go on that front. Once again, whether or not Cody's dead, and if he is, that's a real whoa type of situation. Interestingly enough, so like I said, because there's even thumbnail pictures with him in it. That's where I'm that's why it took me so first. I was like, I thought you were going to be one of the main characters. It's nope. It's all that backstory they were potentially setting up about you being a cop, doing all these different, not playing well with others departments and stuff. I guess it also makes sense why Rick knew so much about him, because he probably needed to find out who was investigating and how he can turn this to his advantage later on. I'm so curious to find out what this is all about, what's planned, like I said, what happened to the other women have gone missing around this situation as well. Maybe we'll get more answers going forward into the next episode. I'm interested to see, what goes down. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.